So the dust has settled from last night. I'm sure if you watched mine and Charlie's watch along towards the end, I was getting more and more annoyed as the game went on. So I thought I'd try and sort of leave my opinions or fan cam stuff until today, where I felt a little bit more calm, shall we say, about what we saw last night. Um, I want to say before I start, I was under no illusion that we were going to win last night, or I expected us to put in a bad performance. I didn't expect it to be as bad as last night. I thought having Souček back this week, I thought that was going to be a massive plus for us. I thought our midfield matched up quite well against Newcastle's. I knew that they posed a certain threat to us, but we just looked completely lackluster going forward. And in our sort of defensive capabilities as well last night. I think what really annoys me is seeing that team sheet last night when it came out. I thought Moyes could have done a better job at picking a side that looked like it may have threatened going forward. I know that's the team that he had towards the back end of last season that he, won a lot of games with, scored a lot of goals with. But something that annoys me is he has tried and he's tested Pablo Fornals down that left hand side so many times last season, and every single time it doesn't work. I think Pablo Fornals himself is a great player. He can create a lot, but when he plays in the centre of the park, he's so wasted out on that left hand side because A, he's not fast enough. B, he's not big enough to create issues. He doesn't have the pace to get in behind. And it annoys me because we've seen him when he plays in the centre, he can have that impact. So to try and continually put a square peg in a round hole, especially when you've got Felipe Anderson on the bench, you can play in that position naturally, or even worse is that you've just sold Grady Diangana, another natural. I say natural, but he's moved over to that left hand side, and we saw how well he can create in pre-season. I think there was so many glaring issues last night. Like I said, but one thing I will say about David Moyes is he obviously wasn't helped in the summer. I felt like he had a great end to last season. The players, everybody, they really started to trust him, sort of buy into what he was trying to do. This summer, we obviously know the board. It was down to them to now back the manager, give him some money to spend. We're not talking a lot. Smart business like Newcastle have done almost, maybe not, one or two of their signings, but Ryan Fraser specifically on a free, fantastic deal. Jamal Lewis for £12 million. There are ways to go about in this flat market where you can spend wisely and improve your team. So I get that there is issues with maybe not having the strength of squad that he wanted before, but that he needs to hold up his end of the bargain and try with the team that he has to produce the results, to make the right substitutions, to start the right team every week. Because at the end of the day, the fans, us, we all know that the bigger issue behind David Moyes is what's up top. So I would really have liked him to hold up his end of the bargain, and that starts with the selection of the team sheet, the subs bench, who plays, who doesn't, when he's making his substitutions. And speaking on substitutions, I think that was one of the main things last night. We saw last season that, or I would say overall, him as a manager, his nickname is Dithering Dave because he doesn't choose to react when we go a goal down. And I think that was the main thing. Myself and Charlie were doing the watch on last night. We were like, how long is it going to take for him to change? Is it going to take us to go a goal down? Is it going to be 10 minutes after we go a goal down? And I think back to last night, that last sort of 15, 20 minutes of the first half, we were gradually coming into the game, but it wasn't really working. First 10 minutes of the second half, we were still sort of on top coming into the game, looking maybe potentially like we were going to score. Had a couple of good chances, even in the first half, hitting the bar a couple of times, but we just couldn't create or finish off those chances that we had made. So at that point, I'm thinking to myself, and I said to Charlie, just turn to the bench. Maybe it's one substitution. Maybe it's the £45 million striker in Allaire on the bench. Maybe it's the £40 million player in Anderson on the bench to try and inject a bit of pace. But he doesn't do anything. And then we go a goal down, and we have to wait 5 or 6 minutes till the substitution comes on, at which point it's a double substitution. But at that point, we take off Fornals, who I think should have been moved into the middle for um, Noble coming off. And again, Yarmolenko coming on, I just don't think he was the right player for us. I think we needed to inject a little bit of pace potentially, and unfortunately he doesn't really have that. So it didn't work. And then I think the worst thing of all was the fact that you then wait until the 89th minute when we're 2 goals down, and it's almost just like a slap in the face substitution from Moyes to say, oh, there's Anderson finally. He should have been on 20 minutes prior. He should have at least 25 to 30 minutes to try and impact the game to benefit us. And that's the problem for me, is that David Moyes is never a reactive manager. When something bad happens, he takes his time, tries to, I guess, in his own way, assess the situation. But at that point, the game's lost. It's too late for me. I think individual performances, I don't. Obviously, a lot of talk this pre-season has been, or the last what feels like a couple of years, is that we've obviously struggled for fullbacks. I want to give Ryan Frederick some credit. Credit is where credit is due. He does cop a lot of flack because, you know, unfortunately, last night's performance is one every 10 to 15 games for him. And the thing is, what annoys, I think, quite a lot of us as fans is that when he puts in performances like he did, you know, yesterday, and then there was the game against, maybe, I don't know who the opponent was, it's Southampton or somebody at home a year or so ago, where he was just unbelievable in 100% in tackles and crosses and stuff like that. And you really, I hope for his sake that he can find that consistency where he can do that week in, week out, because he has the natural ability of pace, which, you know, as a fullback, that is one of your number one assets, you know, to have that ability to bomb up and down the pitch. The crossing ability, he clearly last night proved that he can do that, but it's not just consistent enough, unfortunately, for him. And I think that was worrying for us, is that consistency. But if he can put in performances like that every week, then there's no reason why we would need to look at right back. However, the left back situation is even more dire, I think, at this point. I think with the right back, at least we've got Fredericks and the young lad in Ben Johnson. Left back, Aaron Cresswell, for me, he's finished. He was so poor last night. I mean, every good team, or every team that has caused us problems over the years, we all know has come from the fullback spots. And Aaron Cresswell, for me, he's too slow. The games for him, again, too far and few between. He may pop in a free kick here or there, or a goal, you know, a couple of times a season that proved to be important or whatever. But it's just not good enough. It's not good enough. We are conceding far too many goals coming from down that right-hand side that they're attacking, or down his left-hand channel. And not necessarily that was happening so much last night. I mean, obviously the first goal with Hendrick, there were Diop and the people in the middle just losing Callum Wilson for the goal, I don't know. But teams are planning, and they know how to attack us, and that is our weak spots down the flanks. So many teams in the Premier League have so many fast players, skillful players that can beat Cresswell, that can get round the man, cross it in, whatever. They can do what they want against Cresswell because they know it's an easy matchup for them. I said this week that for me, Tarkowski wasn't the number one priority. It was obviously the fullback positions. But then looking at the state of Issa Diop last night, you think to yourself, do we need somebody like a Tarkowski, another centre-half? Of course, I'd love to see him, but I didn't think it was as glaring an issue as it was until I saw Diop's performance last night. There were so many subpar performances that had just not been good enough in recent memory for West Ham. And I'm seriously worried. I was worried before last night, but I expected a better performance just on the basis that Souček was playing, and I thought it would give us a different edge, but it didn't. And that, for me, is the worrying thing, because now we've got the hardest stretch of our season coming up, and more than likely we're going to be bottom, and how many goals we will concede in that time, I think, will really affect us going forward for the rest of the season. Obviously, goal difference will be massive, I think, if we're in and around a relegation fight at the end of the season. So, yeah, it was just poor. It was poor last night, and I think the blame lies with everyone last night. I thought, you know, again, the board, we all can blame them, but David Moyes did not hold up his end of the bargain last night, and tactically it was a very shocking performance from him as well. So he takes a lot of the blame. I think the last thing I want to say before I go, because it is running over 10 minutes, was Graham Souness. How he can sit in that studio last night and blame Mark Noble for the performance that we had, and that he needs to keep his mouth shut. And it goes back to the same comments of Jim White and Danny Mills and that last week. Why not? Is the captain of the football club. If there's any man for us that should be standing up and speaking against this and what is happening in our football club, and the way that the owners are hell bent on driving us as far as they can into the mud before they cash out for their profit. Why in the hell would Mark Noble, one of the greatest servants this club has ever seen, not be able to speak up and speak his mind? If anything, for me, what Noble said should have resonated with the players, and you almost have a point to prove at that point. Obviously, it didn't work in that respect. Players aren't G'd up. We thought potentially they'd be G'd up. But people like Graham Souness, who give his 2 cents every week, and I think back to all the abuse that he's given Paul Pogba over the years and stuff like that. I just wish people like him on television, because other fans, not necessarily us West Ham fans, but other fans will be around the league and they'll listen and they'll take note of what someone like Graham Souness will say, and they'll sit and they'll think to themselves, oh well, it can't be as bad as West Ham. Yeah, Souness is right. Souness is right. He has to realise that his voice carries weight, unfortunately, because there are some fickle people that will listen to him. And for him to do that and sort of generate that, oh, Mark Noble's bad, oh, West Ham fans complaining again sort of discussion, it does nothing to benefit us. And I thought his comments were completely out of line, and they were just A, totally wrong, but B, it was wrong of him to say what he said last night. And I think we all saw Noble's face when he came off, the cameras panned to him, and it affects him as much as it does us. He is a fan first and foremost of the club. It means so much to him. So to see his face summed up probably how we were all feeling last night after the game finished. Anyway, that is it. That is all I've got time for. Hopefully you did enjoy my opinions. If you did, leave a like on the video. Subscribe to Hammers Chat if you're not. If you do agree with me, if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments down below. It's always appreciated. The reaction that I got from the video that I did the other week was really good from people, and I appreciated reading some of those comments and what people thought about what I thought about the board and my take on everything with the Diangana situation. So yeah, myself and Charlie will be back next week with our watch along, and until then, I guess come on you irons and let's try and stay positive.